Okay, so you've got two objects, the two paired bilateral maxilla, which are joined at the maxillary suture here. And we want to rotate them both. So I'm going to turn off my selection highlighting for a sec. So if I hold down Shift, I have them both selected, right? I can move them together. That's fine. But if I try and rotate them together, they're both rotating about their own axes, right? So even though I'm just seeing the manipulator for this one is getting the same instructions, but its center point is at a different position. So how can we get around this? Well, what we could do, now you can get around this just by moving them independently and fixing it, but if you wanted to, you could group these two things together, move them as a unit, and then ungroup them later on. So let me just show you that. So if we go to Edit and Group down here, and the shortcut is Command G, then you can see that it looks like I just have one thing selected. But I'm going to open up a window that will show you kind of what's going on here. This is going to be an important window to work with after a while anyway. Under Windows, go to Outliner. Outliner is just a list of all the objects in your scene, okay? So you can see there's that floor plane, there's some lights in here you don't have to worry about, and there's the skull group, and there's a plus sign beside it. If I hold down Shift and click on the plus sign, it opens up everything within it. So you can see that there's a cranium group that includes the frontal, the hyoid, the nasals, occipital, so on and so forth. But now you can see there's another group that has been created within it. I just created that one. When I took the maxilla left and the maxilla right, I hit Command G and it grouped them. So for example, if I select zygomatic R and zygomatic L and hit Command G, it will put those two inside a group too. So that means I can just grab that group rather than the individual objects. And if I move the group, oops, I deselected it by accident. Oops. Hold on a second. So with the maxilla, they're in a group, and if I select the group in the outliner, you can see that it's the position of the manipulator is not on the object, it's actually created in the middle of the world. But I can move the groups together. But if I try and rotate now, they rotate together, but about an axis that is in the middle of the world rather than in the middle of the object. So here's one other step you have to do. You group them. The manipulator's in the middle of the world, that's no good. So you go to Modify Center Pivot. Okay, so we're learning a few new commands. Modify Center Pivot. And now the pivot is in the middle of this group, and I can rotate them together. So let's say you get them into place and you want to now ungroup them. Then you can just select the group and go to Edit, Ungroup. And that doesn't work. If I select the objects and go to Edit, Ungroup, that also doesn't work. I don't know why that doesn't work. It should work. Doesn't really matter. If you want to move them out of the group in the outliner, if you select them and then middle mouse drag them out of that group, then they'll be separate now again. I kind of didn't want to get into all this stuff now. You can just move things individually, but if you're interested in doing this, group, center pivot, and then you can move them. But just because they're in a group doesn't mean you can't move them individually now. So I can select the group and move the group together, right, like this. But I can also select one side and still move it. So the group is what we call the parent, and the things within the group are called the children. So the children can move independently, but if the parent moves, the children will follow because they're inside that group. Okay, it's time to go.